I just want to, first of all, explain the context for the nominations today. I'd like to thank the... I'll just give the lads time to clear out, will I? Yeah.
To the member on her feet.
I'd just like to thank those independents who supported the nomination today of the Anti-Austerity Alliance and People Before Profit, and explain the context and take part in the debate on the nominations. The two nominees who we've heard from already should be reminded that one thing is clear from the election: people did vote for change. And the only two nominees that have been put forward today, apart from ourselves, is Fianna Fail and Fine Gael, who do not represent change. They represent more of the same, have dominated political life in Ireland for decades, and while I commend Deputy Martin for doing his very best to convince us of there being a huge difference, it's mouseland politics. They're identical twins in reality. It's amazing that key issues haven't been mentioned by either of the two nominees. Apparently it's unimportant, and it doesn't bear mentioning that this week the Panama Papers revealed a massive concentration of wealth in the hands of a tiny elite globally, but also implicated Ireland in participating in creating tax havens for key companies around the world. We've seen that the 1% are hoarding and hiding their wealth from governments and avoiding tax, while in the so-called third world people are literally starving, looking for water, and in the developed world workers have had their income slashed and public services have been decimated in the last 7 years to bail out this elite. Both of the candidates support this system. They have nothing to say in any criticism of it, and they think that this type of inequality is absolutely fine. And in fact, they base their entire economic policy on encouraging low corporation tax rates and imposing some of these companies even paying back taxes to this country, such as Apple, who owe 19 billion. So these are key issues for the electorate who made a decision to elect the government. And what we believe in the Anti-Austerity Alliance and People Before Profit is that we must take this wealth and use it to invest in housing, health and education. Amazingly as well, neither nominee has mentioned the water charges. They're on the radio talking about it. They haven't explained their position here today. Are they going to get rid of the water charges? Are they going to suspend the water charges? The two parties are doing their very best to minimise this issue, to bat it out of the way, and we would say in the Anti-Austerity Alliance and People Before Profit, we encourage people to maintain and accelerate the boycott of those charges, because clearly we can't rely on these two parties, and particularly we can't rely on Fianna Fail based on their negligence of mentioning the issue, as being the way to get rid of water charges. We will have to refuse to pay, to put them under pressure, to completely abolish them. Now, the fact is as well that this is the first time a woman has even been nominated in almost 100 years of the existence of the Dáil for the position of Taoiseach. And I think that that says a hell of a lot about the position of women in Irish public life over the last century. Because the deputy from Fianna Fail mentioned that she's not a second-class citizen. She isn't. But in 32 Dáils, not one woman was ever nominated for Taoiseach. And in the last Dáil, there was no women members of her own party here, despite having 20 members. So our point is that women have been sidelined in Ireland. And in fact, there's key issues relating to women that should be addressed. 1916 has been mentioned quite rightly. The women who fought in 1916 were very quickly brushed out of the picture and erased from history. They were told to go back into the kitchens and stay out of public life. That is a reality. And it's the ancestors of the two nominees, the political ancestors, who did that. And it should be mentioned. And what they subsequently did was they allowed the Catholic Church dictate a huge amount of people's lives, given them a special place in education, a special place in health, and huge control over people's lives. Now, people have rejected that type of society in the marriage equality referendum, and they've made their position clear. They want social progress, they want equality. The separation of church and state is inevitable. I'm not confident it will be done by either of the two parties who have nominated people here today. Outside the Dáil and outside the Taoiseach's office today, Amnesty International staged a protest, which they're doing for 12 days, on the issue of the ongoing scandal of the 8th Amendment, introduced by the political ancestors of the two parties and maintained for 33 years. But now we're here to say that that shame can no longer continue. 80% of people favour a referendum and favour repeal of the 8th Amendment. And are the parties here, again, you didn't bother mentioning it, but in your negotiations and your discussions, we don't want a commission looking into it. People want a referendum, and the democratic right is to have one, and for you not to suppress that as an issue any longer. We'll be discussing Dáil reform. It shouldn't be the privilege of a government to prevent the general populace having a referendum on a key issue of civil liberties, which clearly they want. I just want to finally mention housing. I know a lot of deputies have left to go and hear Erica Fleming speak about her situation. I commend Erica for campaigning over months in a very difficult situation. I took part in an occupation with Erica of a house to highlight the ongoing housing crisis, and it's scandalous that she's still in the situation she is in. There has to be an end to the privatising of housing, and taking that issue into public control will be the only way that we can end the housing crisis. Just finally, on the talks process, I do not welcome a Fianna Fail or Fine Gael coalition or partnership, unlike what Deputy Martin has said. But what I would warn is that if the two traditional parties and the so-called independents who are having chats with them for the last while, who are not really independent because obviously they're willing to be to horse trade with the two traditional parties and prop them up if needs be. But if these two parties think that you can continue to rule in the old way, you can forget it. Because what we've seen is, yes, the Lewis workers, we've seen a reaction from nurses, from teachers, of having a two-tier system that was foisted by these two parties. The Tesco workers won't accept having to suffer low pay, and they won't accept a continuation of austerity, ruled by the rich against the interests of working people. So be warned about those things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy.